Hello, this is Jeff from leathercraft, and today we are going to explore if we're able to trace a pattern onto leather with the intention of carving it and tooling it after the fact. Most of the time when we go ahead and plan on tooling a pattern onto leather, we have to first trace the pattern onto the leather, and then we'll break out our swivel knife in order to carve it. And then after carving it, we'll go ahead and tool it by beveling it and whatever stamps you plan on using in shaping your pattern. So today we're going to explore how we could actually use the laser to go ahead and trace that pattern onto the leather for you. That way you'll be saving a lot of time because it takes, basically you're doing the pattern twice. You're first tracing it onto the leather and then you're carving it out with the swivel knife. So today we're going to see if we could actually trace the pattern onto the leather. So I personally ended up using a combination of Lightburn and Adobe Illustrator. Now, I know there's some free programs that work that are similar to Illustrator from what I understand, and one of them is called Inkscape, which is one word, Inkscape. I am not sure if it has this feature, but it most likely does. But I'm going to be showing you how I do it with Adobe Illustrator today. Okay, not only do I want to show you how to do this, but I want you to be able to understand what we're doing. That way you can apply this information to other aspects of design. When you're dealing with Lightburn, you basically have three modes. You have line, fill, and image. And line and fill can only be used with vectors. When you're dealing with an image, Lightburn sees the image and then it will go ahead and engrave it onto the material of your choice. So you can't actually, it won't trace the actual image. Let me just show you. Now you see this is a JPEG image. So if I wanted to go ahead and render this out onto leather through Lightburn, it's considered an image. So if I went ahead and previewed it, you would see that the way it's going to do this is back and forth. So the laser is going to go back and forth. Here, let me hit play. So it's not actually burning a line. At this point, it's just etching it. And the reason that's happening is because this is an image. It doesn't see it as a vector image. It doesn't see this as separate lines. So it's not able to trace the lines. So doing it this way is simply not going to work because it's not cutting into the leather. The goal is to get the lines as thin as possible. That way, when you use your swivel knife and you're tracing the pattern that's on the leather, you're definitely going to cover up any burning that's taken place by the laser because the line is going to be really thin. So one of the first things I thought was, okay, let's go ahead and use the tracing mechanism. So you could trace this image, which turns it into a vector image. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to hit trace image. And here it brings up the window. It has a few features that you can use if it's not coming out correctly. But by default, you see all the purple line here. It's ready to trace it out properly. So I go ahead and hit OK. Now the problem with this is even though now you see it's a line, and I could actually cut it as a line. Here, let's go to preview again. Oh. Let's make sure the output is on. Let's go ahead and hit preview. See, now it'll trace it. See, I'm going through this fast, but it's tracing it in comparison to how it was working earlier. But the problem is, if you zoom up on it, when it traced it, what it actually did was, picture inside these two lines is your black line. So instead of just creating one line, it created two lines representing the area that was filled by the actual line. So if I cut this, if I use this like this, and I wanted to bevel, say, this area, this whole area right here is an unnecessary cut, and it's going to look bad. So the question was how to get rid of those double lines, and that's where Illustrator comes in. Now I opened the project window in Illustrator. This is actually just a 72 pixels and it's a 8.5 by 11 sheet. I use that because in case I ever make patterns that I want to share with anybody, I know that they have a printer that's going to print out 8.5 by 11. So I create most of my stuff on 8.5 by 11. So let's go ahead and open the file that we were just working on. There it is, number 5. All right, so there it is in the middle. Now, Illustrator has a tracing feature as well, and the tracing feature is actually a lot more elaborate. There's a lot you can do with Illustrator. Now, I can go ahead and hit Trace Image, and we'll go ahead and it traced it. And if you zoom up on it, you know, you still have those thick lines. And you figured, okay, great, it's good to go. And what's great about Illustrator is you can actually hit Control A and Control C, and it'll copy it. And then you can bring it right into Lightburn by hitting Control V. But if you notice, there's those double lines again. And that's not going to do, because it's going to cut those spaces out. So let's go ahead and delete that by clicking on it and deleting it. And let's go back to Illustrator. And I'm going to undo what I just did. All right, now we're back to our normal image. So there is an aspect of image trace that I want to use, but I will show you which one. If you click on this arrow right by the image trace window, it brings up several different options, and these are all different tracing options. And I ran into one called line art, and that's the one you want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click on line art. It's going to take a second, because it's got some compiling to do, but that was pretty quick. Now, if you notice, the lines are thinner. And if you zoom up on it, they look pretty nice, but there's still that thick channel, or so it seems to be. So I'm going to go ahead and click Control A and then Control C. That's selecting everything, Control A, and then copying it with Control C. I'm sure you're already aware of that. And here we are back in Lightburn. I'm going to hit Control V, which is paste. And there we go. This time we don't. We have simple lines, which is excellent. The beautiful thing, and you could do what I'm about to do in Illustrator as well as Lightburn, but you might feel more comfortable doing it in Lightburn, is you notice, like, for example, like this line right here is not connecting there. And if you were going to use your swivel knife anyway, you can imagine after you trace this onto the leather where you could actually complete that line just with your swivel knife. But if you're not comfortable with doing it like that, what you can do is, let's go ahead and click on this to select it. I'm going to go ahead and ungroup it. Now each line is its own little separate entity. It's like that. So let's go back to where we see, like, if we wanted to fix this line. So we're here, right here. So now I want to click on this node manipulation tool, we'll call it, or it says edit nodes. And now I'm able to edit the node. So I could actually click on it and drag it over to the end. There you go. Let's take a better look at it. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually change. If I didn't like the bend in there, I could actually go ahead and manipulate it. I could bring everything in. But once things are node, can't seem to click on the node. Once things are nodes, you can manipulate them like that. So if you want, you could fix those type of sections. Like, for example, you see that little end right there? It's like curving in a way that is not flattering to the pattern. I'm going to go ahead, go ahead and take one of the side angles, and there you go. So you can totally, completely fix anything that you don't like. So it's very manipulative. Now, if you look, you can go ahead and hit preview, and there it is. Now it's going to go ahead and carve this with very thin lines. I mean, the thinnest of lines. So this is ready to go. All right, this is Herman Oak leather, and the stencil came out excellent, I found. This will be easy to use a swivel knife on. The leather cut excellently. The line is so thin that you could just follow it so simply, and there's no sign whatsoever that you use the laser to go ahead and put the tracing onto the leather. I saved a lot of time by using this technique. You don't have to trace the pattern onto the leather. Plus, the way I normally would do it was I would print the image onto a piece of paper. Then I would surround the image on the paper with tape. That way it didn't get wet once I wet the leather. And then you have to spend time positioning the paper pattern onto the leather to where you want it to be. So you save time that way. So you also save material. I didn't waste a piece of paper. I didn't waste any tape. And I didn't have to position the pattern onto the leather. That is taken care of by the Lightburn and the laser. So that made it a lot simpler. I know there's been plenty of times where I go to place a pattern onto leather and I find after the fact, after I traced it, it's slightly crooked, either to the left or to the right. And that's always frustrating. As you know, as an artist, you probably can see that stuff pretty well. The average citizen might not be able to pick up on that, but 1 or 2 millimeters, it's very disturbing. I hate when that happens. So this eliminates that scenario once and for all, which is really nice. I am going to make a part 2 to this video, and what I plan on doing is not only tracing the image onto the leather like we did in this video. I'm going to set the power a little higher or maybe slow down the machine, and we're going to go ahead and carve into it and see if we can eliminate the swivel knife altogether. Why not? Let's find out how far this modern technology can go. In my personal opinion, it wouldn't be the best technique when you're doing like a Sheridan floral style. The Sheridan style, it has like a 3D effect. So you're putting different amount of pressure on the swivel knife when you're cutting, especially around the circles, because you're kind of creating layers and you don't want to go too deep, and then you want to go very deep to create that illusion. So the idea might not be so good. It might be a bad idea, but let's give it a try and see how it works. If you're tooling a piece of art that doesn't need different pressures for the swivel knife, then it might work out just fine. I mean, it could help and speed things up quite a bit. Who knows? Let's just give it a try. But I do want to thank you guys for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. I hope you I hope this was useful to you. I know for me, I'm going to use this technique for certain things. And if you have any questions or if you have a better way of doing this, please go ahead and write it out in the comment section and I will definitely get back to you. Until then, thank you. Oh yeah, of course, if you feel like subscribing, that would be great. Liking would be even better. So I appreciate it. Have a great every day. Take care and be good to each other.